Hi there, I'm Thomas Lamb. I'm CEO of Myriad Uranium Corp. Myriad is a CSE-listed uranium explorer, relatively new. We're also co-listed on the OTC and Frankfurt stock exchanges. Our symbol on the CSE is M. On the OTC is MYRUF and Frankfurt C3Q. So we are looking for uranium in Niger. Niger could soon be the world's second largest uranium producer. We have 1,800 square kilometers of prime exploration licenses, right up against two of the most important uranium deposits in Africa. We're up against Orano's Immereren, that is Africa's largest uranium deposit at about 384 million pounds of uranium. We're right next door. And we're also just down the fault from Global Atomic's Dasa deposit. That is Africa's highest grade development stage deposit, and it is also enormous at 250 million pounds of uranium. So we're an explorer, but we have a lot of old data from Orano and its predecessor Areva, and we are looking to make new massive discoveries in the Tim-Roussoy Basin in Niger.
Well, Tom, good to have you back on, sir. We saw you back down in Cape Town, where we heard the story for the first time. And it's a nice little reminder that you're moving things forward. I think you forgot to name drop Goviax, who you border with as well. So you're in the right postcode, right, or zip code, as they say. So look, what's happened since we last spoke?
Well, we were advancing the company. When we last spoke, just a few months before we met last time in Cape Town, we'd really just put the deal together. This is a 100% option, or option over 100% of these licenses, these 4 licenses, again, just over 1,800 square kilometers. And when we last spoke, we had just acquired and assimilated and done a first pass over all the historic data that we acquired from Orano, Areva, and other sources, and that was 24,000 meters of drilling, airborne, ground geophysics, lots of surface work, et cetera. So we had all that data. So when we last met, we were very excited. Things were new. Well, since then, we've looked at the data. We've prioritized some areas. We've made plans for the rest of this year, and we're incredibly excited. So I guess one of the most important things, the main things that's happened since we last met, is we've made our plan to start airborne. This is drone geophysics. This is drone mag, which we're going to fly over our key areas in our, at our Agebout license. This is our northernmost license, and then also right up near Global Atomic's Dasa. So that is We've just decided on that and planned that and firmed that up. And also we've made other plans regarding near-term exploration. This will include ground electrical methods, IP, AMT, et cetera. So that's exciting progress. That's going to start very soon. I'm not sure how much I was able to speak to this last time we met, but we've acquired Orano's, these were Areva's plans to explore the area just north of Immereren. So I mentioned this in the introduction, but Immereren, just so everybody knows, it's owned by Orano. It is Africa's largest uranium deposit, 384 million pounds. And we have the license just north of that. In fact, we share a property boundary, and the fault, which hosts Immereren, goes north into our Agebout license. There it meets the Madawela fault, and the Madawela fault goes off, and then a few kilometers north goes into Goviax's license area, and then hits Goviax's and hosts Goviax's Madawela deposit. So just north of Immereren, we have this area. We call it Immereren North, and so since we met last time, we've acquired what were Orano's plans from around 2012, right after Fukushima, to explore this area, Immerern North, intensively. They'd planned about 65 boreholes, all sorts of other work, but they never got to it. And because Fukushima, $19 uranium, etc., and they relinquished their exploration licenses. We acquired the licenses, and we've got this area, we have their data, we've got their plans, and we're going to explore this area intensively. So that I think that's fairly new since we last spoke. It's extremely exciting,
right? Because I think around the time we spoke, you were kind of raising a little bit of money, just kind of clear the decks, as it were, and get ready for this administrative phase of analysis about the historic data, and then obviously going off and getting new data. And the going off and getting new data with drone geophysics and whatever else is to come will cost more money. So, what is your thinking with regards to how you kind of play the market in terms of timing that activity, and what is it exactly that you want to get after to kind of inform your decision making for the rest of the year?
Yeah, well, we're conscious of the current market conditions. You can feel the energy in uranium, can't you? I mean, it's people are excited, but the share prices aren't necessarily responding, although we seem to be doing well. But we're conscious of this. Instead of going out for example, a big raise right now, we think it makes sense to do a fairly small raise near term. So, we'll probably look at raising just maybe $1 million, $2 million over the next little while. We have about 1.1 million in the bank. So we're conscious of the market conditions. We actually have plenty of money because we don't spend very much, and we aren't spending very much at this point. So what we're doing is we are planning a raise near term. We'll announce that. We're going to spend a few $100,000 on the initial drone mag geophysics, followed by probably the budget is another few $100,000 on the IP/AMT. And we should have plenty of money taking us to carry us to September. And this includes investor awareness efforts that we're going to initiate that people will see. I'm very optimistic about that, biting. And so we should be in a good financial position come September. And in the run up to September, because we have planned to start drilling around October 1st, we can decide how much money we want to raise sort of in the summer to fund drilling. We'll have enough money. We could do a smaller drill program starting October 1st with money that we'll have in the treasury. Call that $1 million or $2 million, depending on what's happening. Or we could be more ambitious. We want to be in a position where we have really good option value, kind of where we have leverage if the market heats up, for example. If uranium gets really exciting, we're going to be in a really good position because we're going to have cash, we're going to have exciting plans, and we'll have already started our marketing. On the other hand, if things stay the way they are and just are a little bit lateral, then we're also going to be in a good position because we're not running down our cash. We'll have enough to execute our plan and also do some very exciting drilling starting October 1st.
Right. Okay. So keeping options open and not burying the shareholders by raising too much money right now.
Exactly.
We're off to the WNA conference in Luxembourg at the end of this month. It seems like a big turnout. Oh, yeah. The great and the good are rocking up for that one. This whole kind of energy security, energy transition component, nuclear is front and center there with, in terms of its cost-effective baseload energy. So I think governments are in attendance and governments are paying attention to that now. And I think likewise, the Niger government has also recently sort of demonstrated its unconditional support for uranium in country with recent events, right? So you've got to work out how you can navigate the markets. It used to be a case of navigating the geopolitical scene, but it just kind of feels like there's this groundswell support, and encouragement by governments across the world for it, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I love talking about the subject. We could, geez, it just keeps getting better and better, the story, doesn't it?
Yeah, amazing.
Governments around the world are adjusting their thinking. The populations of countries that used to be, maybe again anti-nuclear or neutral at best are now in favor. The story is really shifting. It's extremely exciting. And, as you mentioned in Niger too, the government is really, I talk to these people, ministers, prime minister, other people, involved their various capacities. I mean, the energy there is palpable. The excitement. They're really excited about what's to come here. Niger is going to really hot up. Strong support there and anticipation.
Right. So tell me. So then we're kind of moving to with that conversation is like, how do you play it in country, right? So you've got you got three projects. If we say target 2 and 3, or the one
together,
asset, right? You got 3 assets. You are bound at the border with Maduela and Goviek's one side. You've got Orano on the other. Obviously, big player, big assets. You're an explorer. You've got to be agile and nimble about the way that and efficient with the way that you deploy capital. So, in terms of your plans, I know it's early days, but you given that you're surrounded by the great and the good, what's the business plan for you? Is it a case of just keep raising money efficiently and staying in control yourself, or do you look to partners or partner with other companies on any of the 3 projects?
Yeah, great. That is the question. So we have so much land. We have 1,800 square kilometers, over 1,800 square kilometers, and that is a lot for a company our size. So we will be looking to joint venture. I'm really optimistic about that. We have great acreage. So what we're doing initially is we're prioritizing 2 areas. The one, as I mentioned, is just north of Immerare, and that's Immerare North. We're going to focus on that ourselves, and we can do that quite cheaply and efficiently because we already have data, plans, this is Orano, Arriva's plans, et cetera, and with some really focused geophysics, airborne and ground, plus drilling that's targeted based on that information. We can really spend money efficiently. So that's number one. Number two, a bit the same thing over by Global Atomics DASA in a small area there. That's it's not that small, and so we can focus on those 2 areas. Try to find another Global Atomic DASA deposit to the south, close to DASA, and then here in Agebout at our Immerare North area. We'd be happy to go deeper and look for high grade that is more analogous to DASA. But we can also, and this is just something I wanted to mention, then I'll continue the rest of your question there. Orano, in relation to Immerare, has just announced an in situ recovery test project. Their budget's about $115 million Canadian. That's about 85 million euros. And they are going to start in situ recovery at Immerare, and this really transforms economics, as many of you viewers will understand. This actually elevates our Agebout Immerare North project to quite a high priority, because if the sandstone, roll-front sandstone geology is amenable to ISR there, then this is extremely exciting and bodes really well as we've described it for Agebout Immerare North license. So, and we can do that cheaply. So that's number one. Number two, we'll explore very efficiently down by Global Atomics DASA project that's in our Affidavit license. Then number three, we have Tagait 2 and Tagait 3, really big, very exciting licenses on key faults. We've got to the west, Chinese Azalik project, to a little bit to the north, again, Global Atomics DASA on the Adrar Morales fault. So those 2 licenses in the south, I think we're going to attract, in particular, joint venture interest. So, that is our plan, and it's really cash efficient at this point. So, we can advance in that way, especially given our stage. We're going to raise more money and advance, but we want to be, we're conscious of dilution. Your viewers will see that we only have 26.5 million shares outstanding, and we all, I'd like to repeat this, we all pay for our shares, real money, management, and key people. So it's not something where we've issued lots of cheap shares to everybody. So we're efficient and with our share structure, in terms of our share structure and our spending. So I hope that partly answers your question.
No, well, it does, and yeah, I know you've got a kind of tight share structure and a tight register, which is great at these early stages. So I just want to come back to the Iran situation with regard to ISR, because it's not really the done thing in Niger. And so Niger government very very pro uranium, very pro mining, and very very helpful. Licenses,
No.
Get allocated quite quickly, etc. So it's important to them. But obviously, an ISR is 50% of production globally, but it's not something that's been done that often in Russia. In Niger. So
in Niger,
what do you?
It's a big part of production in Kazakhstan, et cetera. But you're right.
Sure.
In fact, all throughout Africa, I think it's not really the done thing in Africa. Generally, is it? And
how is Iran getting on with that program? You say it bodes well for you, but
Okay, well, I mean, this is I should actually be a little bit more. We were excited. So we're new entrants in Niger, right? And we've been there. We did our deal last August. I'm a fairly new CEO, just started in November. We see Orano making this big announcement about in situ. They've been doing hydrological work for a few years. We've been trying to find out how it's been going, and but we weren't able to learn anything. And so this announcement actually caught us a bit by surprise. Maybe not others, but just all of a sudden they were telling they announced this, and exciting for us being neighbors, hopefully similar geology, etc. But we are at the same time very conscious that in situ is a complex issue in Niger. I mean, it's a complex issue in lots of places because you've got, how does it affect aquifers? How does it affect the local people? Agriculture? What does it, water supply, and are the effects long term, et cetera. So there are these issues, and we're going to have to wrap our heads around this. Learn as much as we can about it. It's all new, but this is it's a really good point. Will ISR, will in situ, work in Niger? Will it be acceptable to local people, to the government, etc.? I'm looking forward to finding out. And of course, it all has to be done, with a focus on the environment and the local folks who are going to be affected by this. So that is priority one.
Okay, so that's in the background, watching brief. Let's see how Rana get on and how the government reacts to that, and environmentalists react to that, and all of those good things that mining companies need to do properly. For you though, and I saw a kind of map of, because this is quite interesting. I know you've been referencing and talking about Iran North and as you're leaving your project, but you really are quite close. It might be worth whipping up a map here. In fact, there we go. There we go. We have a map up there. So can you again talk us through Agebout or Agebout,
sure.
And what's happening there in the near term, if that's the focus?
Great. So if I had a moment, I would label this Immerern North. This is this oval with an A in it. And this is what we call, Myriad calls Immerern North. And you can see Immerern itself a little bit to the south. That is Orano's Immerern. So that, that's about 10 kilometers away.
Okay.
So it's quite close. You can see it's just offset off. These are interpreted major structures. But so the plan is we have a little bit of historic drilling information from this zone, these are historic drill holes by Areva and maybe Kojima. And these basically offenses here that are run north-south. The red dots are intersections of over 100 ppm. And you can see they were over there. These are sort of tertiary structures, almost like you see. We have it called lineament interpretations. They were over there looking for some other very interesting things. By the way, you can see these are labeled our other priorities B and C. But what's happening is now with this Imararan announcement with the ISR, that does elevate this zone and this intersection to a priority. We think it's going to be very interesting to explore. So I think maybe I'm repeating myself, but you can see these are planned holes. These were Areva's planned holes inside the oval, 65 of them. And so the plan is...
Were they shallow? I mean, what sort of depths are we talking about?
Well, the planned holes themselves were always in 300 meters or less. And that's because that's what Areva Urano did throughout the entire basin. And that's, I don't want to say that's why they didn't find a DASA, a global atomic DASA, but they were looking for these sandstone roll front, uranium deposits, low grade, et cetera. And so they didn't go deeper.
Yeah, okay, but it's going to say you kind of got the Arlott fault and the Maduello faults of joining up at that point. Interesting.
Yeah, you can see Urano's operating mines, or at least one of the two up here in the north, Sommer and Cominac, operating. They have their mill, which is high capacity. That's probably going to take feed from DASA up here. You've got GobiX's Maduela project. It's just all these things are controlled by these major faults, and the fact they merge here. Now a geologist would say it's a lot more complicated than just having key faults merging in your property. But it is interesting, at first, extremely interesting at first remove. So the planned holes, Areva's planned holes were shallow, relatively shallow, but the Carboniferous layer, and again, it gets more complicated than this, but Global Atomics DASA lies deeper, right, beneath the sandstone layers into the Carboniferous, which, depending on where you are, maybe is at around 300 meters, 400 meters. It's big. Global Atomics big intercepts that were announced in, say, November, December. Maybe it was November. 46 meters of 3%, shorter interval of 13% uranium. Those were deeper. Those are 500 meters, 550 meters. As a lot of your viewers will know, the economics of those, even though they're fairly deep, or the economics are really, really great. So, we're interested in going deeper also. So we've got the planned holes here, but what about going significantly deeper and looking for high grade deposits that maybe more closely resemble Global Atomics DASA? So very interesting.
Okay, so that's the plan. So Tom, I'm going to just slightly segue off, if you don't mind, which is about you. Okay, we talked last time, and you kind of covered fairly loosely some of the stuff that you've been involved in the past, without sort of necessarily talking about success. So just to remind me, so you're a new CEO, but you've been involved in mining before. Where have you seen success before, or where have you been involved with success before, relative to what you're trying to do today?
Well, I guess reverse chronology. Starting about 11 years ago, started a project generator in East Africa, focused on Uganda with two partners, Dr. Jennifer Hinton and Andy Edelmeyer, and we ended up developing all sorts of assets and projects, but one of the ones that really worked out, and you'll be familiar with the company that we sold the project to, was a company called M2 Cobalt. So my partners and I, we founded it. I was on the board of that company and an executive, and we, it's about 4 years ago, we sold to Jervois Global, which is Australia based offshoot, really kind of an offshoot of Glencore. And I think you'll know Bryce Crocker, et cetera, in that team. So it was a really good deal for us. It really, we were happy. I worked as an executive as part of the deal terms. I stayed on for a year and a half as an executive for Jervois Global, and then ended up eventually leaving. But that was something we built from scratch. We literally staked the ground in East Africa and Uganda, built the company public, and sold it to Jervois, and Jervois did extremely well for a while. So that would be something where we, some of our investors and shareholders did extremely well. Jervois since, of course, is it's quite the up and down for cobalt. That's an example. Earlier I started a company called Gold Group. In fact, I was the very first shareholder in 2005. I started with a really old friend of mine, and we built that over 5 years and had a nice IPO 5 years later, and it ended up being worth a few $100 million, and it was a nice success. I left the day after the IPO, after helping to build it for 5 years, and the story after that is it's interesting. But that was a Mexico-focused gold producer. That's another example. So I've had some lucky bounces along the way. Other things I've done, been involved in various juniors. CBJ was a Colombia-focused gold explorer. It was quite successful for a time. And I also lived in London. I went to London Business School, and out of that, I got recruited to be on the board of Russia's, at the time, second largest gold producer. So that was an exciting time. That was years ago, before things went quite a different direction with Russia. But I was on the board of a company called U-Gold, or Uzuralzolota, which had 11 gold mines across Russia, and that was great experience. So those are 3 examples of things I've done, and there's more.
No, I just think it's worth sometimes, people ask us about
Sure.
the background of the CEOs and the team, and in terms of being relevant to building companies. So
sure, I was a corporate lawyer in my previous life, mergers and acquisitions lawyer, securities lawyer.
We won't hold that against you. We won't hold it against you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Well, look, Tom, I appreciate you coming back on and saying you're ready to kind of step up and move this thing forward. Obviously, we're big fans of Africa and Niger and uranium, and I just think it's an interesting little story that you're starting to build here, and obviously in the right zip code. So. Look, stay in touch as things move forward, and if you're going to do that at Raise, do you give us a heads up on that? Because that would be quite interesting, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And thanks for having me. It's always great to see you.